the Strength Beyond Struggle podcast and Ending the Silence program of the National Alliance for Mental Illness, NAMI, sponsored by Access. In every episode, we deal with difficult mental health topics, including suicide. So if you're struggling, remember, you can always get help by calling 988. So, welcome to the Strength Beyond Struggle podcast, and I'm here today with Adrian Arciniega. And we are going to talk, we've talked to Adrian before about his struggles with ADHD going through high school, and you ended up in making some choices that were not the best for you, and getting into drugs and questioning things and just struggling with kind of your purpose in life, which drew you some weird places. And then you found a solution, and it was rehab and your faith.
Yes, ma'am.
And how did that happen?
So, to be pretty detailed, I always kind of had like a complicated relationship with God growing up. We'd go to church on and off because we'd go live with different family members, at different times. So there'd be times where we were going to church like a decent amount, and there'd be times where we didn't go to church for years. So I feel like I always heard of God. So I always just assumed he was real, and that he was big, and that he just didn't want you to have sex before you were married. And that was like all I really retained about God, if I'm being totally honest. And I don't know why.
About all I retained as a child.
I kid you not. Yeah, those really stuck. But I did have pretty fond memories of being young and being in clearly they were church settings where they were telling us early stories about the Bible and Genesis, really fun stories
NER.
Yeah, which they're fun in Sunday school, but then you go read them back as adults and, there's thousands of... Yeah, you're like, these are hella intense. There's people dying by the millions. But they leave that part out in Sunday school. They just give you some animal crackers and some juice and call it a good. But so I remember those memories being very positive and being very fond of those memories. But I as I just would go in and out of church settings, I kind of don't think I ever really had a good grasp or good understanding of faith, who God was, what it meant to have him in your life or follow him or love him, or most importantly, be loved by him. And oddly enough, for a lot of the weird situations I was in and going family to family and being in different churches, I say it's just because I know a lot of people who've had really tragic experiences in a church, from, church leadership and stuff like that. I can't really say I ever had an experience like that, which it's
a blessing.
Hindsight, 100%. Yeah. I'm like, that was probably God's doing right there. But by the time I got to rehab, I remember I was sitting on my bed one day and I was just kind of I'm in Payson, Arizona, probably
Well, and I want to bring the audience up to this point too. Don't mean to interrupt.
No worries.
You're in rehab because you were exploring a lot of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
You've gotten lost in that world of substance abuse.
Yes, ma'am.
Not so far as getting arrested, because you had some borders on that one.
I had two goals growing up, probably from the time I was 14 plus. It was don't smoke meth and don't get arrested, because I was my parents did meth, and that's why they always got arrested. So as long as I am not doing those two things, you're doing just
You
fine.
were lucky that way, but as a child with ADHD, and we've talked about your ADHD and your struggles in school, where people labeled you as a problem child,
Mm-hmm.
unable to focus, which is so not the problem of an ADHD person, an inability to follow directions, and that's a recipe for a criminal.
Yeah. No, it definitely... Especially after you just hear it so much, whether you agree with it or not, when it's just kind of pushed on you, and people literally pull up files and they're just oh, it says you're this, it says you're that, it says, you're lazy and you don't like doing your work, and that you are in danger of not going places, although you have high potential. And
what is that?
Yeah, you just hear that so much that you're just okay, whatever. You're
yeah.
Oh, how can I get you guys to stop talking? And it was just, kind of a pain. So that on top of the skateboarding thing, since we skateboarded so much growing up, that was also kind of just always looked at negatively. They just always see you as a skateboarder and think you're just up to no good. So it became pretty easy to adopt that persona and lifestyle of just
yeah, I'm tough.
I'm bad, I'm tough. I thrive in chaos. I like anarchy, you know, like if authority says do this, I'll do that. Yeah, it just felt pretty easy to step into that. Although, like, I don't want to say I was just like a full on like degenerate, because I was raised with manners, and like I was
Never got arrested, Adrian.
I never got arrested, which honestly took some tactics on my part, because there were many scenarios where we could have and should have got arrested, but we got away.
And you were lucky.
Statute of limitations, so you know. but yes, no, we were very, very lucky, very fortunate, very blessed, just from the amount of drugs we've done with kids that we were doing them with right next to, like, today as adults, even then as teenagers. Like, it did stuff to their brains and their minds and their personalities that it just didn't do to us for some reason. And that, again, is just...
And maybe that was God playing a role.
I was going to say that, in my opinion, is one of the biggest blessings from God, because I could be in jail for long periods of time for the stuff that I've done. I could be non-responsive, like a vegetable-ish type state, just because of all the brain cells that I've ruthlessly butchered just by doing so many different substances, and not researching them, knowing what they were, the effects on the brain, mixing them. You know, I was not careful with my life in any way, shape, or form.
But you were ADHD, and that's what we're talking about. And then when we looked at the research, it says that with ADHD people, they're not, the chemicals aren't firing the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that created the behaviors that made people think that you were a bad person.
Yeah.
And then you take on the label because they kept labeling you. So you find yourself in Payson, Arizona rehab after this adventure.
Literally.
Yeah.
Payson, Arizona. I'm 18 years old. And I remember just being like on my bed and just thinking like, man, this sucks. Like, this is like literally the suckiest thing. Like, everybody else is probably just starting college and having a great time back in California. And I'm in Payson, Arizona, in this dumb little rehab that's like obsessed with God for some reason. There's a very faith-based rehabilitation called U-Turn for Christ, where there is no media allowed. No, like, you can't even read like the newspaper. It's like your options are to read the Bible, a dictionary in case you don't understand words in the Bible. And like, that was it. You didn't watch TV. You weren't allowed to do anything. You weren't even allowed to get up and get food out of the fridge without permission. Like, you would be disciplined. It's essays, like long essays that you had to write from like 500 to like 5,000 words, or one of the bigger disciplines is you go outside and dig a hole, like from the movie Holes, like 5 by...
Seriously?
100%. I had to dig a few. But I never really did anything that bad. I always got in trouble for talking to girls, which I could also back up was not my fault.
Wait a minute, so you weren't supposed to talk to girls?
You're not allowed to talk to women at all. We're not allowed to look at...
Whoa.
You're not allowed to like...
It's like going to a monk or a monastery or something.
Oh yeah, no. So it was like military style, but at the same time, like there were just so many funny rules, like literally no interactions with women. And that's what it was. Like, sometimes women would come up and like say hi or shake your hand, like when we were in church and stuff, and you were like allowed to respond in that sense, to be like respectful. But I would respond and they were just like, oh, but that lady like talked to you for too long and you were keeping the conversation going, so you have to dig a hole. And I was like, oh, you guys are so jealous. But like, whatever, I'll just dig my stupid holes.
Jealous.
It was, man, and I get it. Like, you're deprived of women, so it's just like, one, I feel like I understand this on a fundamental level too. Like, men and women are just different. So it's just like, it's great to like talk to dudes. It's awesome. It's great to talk to ladies. It's just awesome. They just bring different things at the table.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And then when you deprive one of one altogether, like, do not look, do not speak, do not like be alone with a woman, do not like, yeah, you kind of miss out on like some things in life. You're just like, yeah, women have a lot to offer. They have good opportunity, not opportunities, what I'm trying to say, opinions on like so many things that if you're just around guys, you don't get.
Wow, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. Thank you.
Yeah, no. So I remember like,
but it's very aesthetic. So in other words, there was a point to this.
Mm-hmm.
And were they really trying to just, I'm trying to understand, because it sounds pretty harsh what they did, but you said it helped you.
Oh yeah, no, even the holes, like essays, I hate essays. So it's just like, essays were always tough. But I remember I getting like really spiteful about the essays, and I would try to see how short I could make my essays. Like, they had to be 500 words. That was the issue. So I'd find the shortest words possible to use. So I remember like I would have specific sentences. It was just like, if it is in his will, like, what is that already? Like 8 words or something. So I'd be like, if it is in God's will, blah, 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 blah. If it is not in God's will, blah, blah, blah. And I'd repeat these phrases that just racked up the words. And I'd write them really small so that when my 500 words was done, it looked like a paragraph. And they're like, that's not 500 words. I'm like, yes, it is. Just read it. And they're like, it's so small, I can barely read it. I'm like, but you can read it. So like I was just like kind of annoying, but like so I'd write these super small essays with like just repetitive words and you know but I was serving my discipline. Those, like I said, didn't get much out of them. But in a hole is where a lot of guys would quit the program because you'd have to go outside and you got to dig your hole. And sometimes holes took a long time. The hole I dug in the specific spot on the property wasn't much dirt. It was like mostly granite.
Oh, God.
So I had to, like with a pickaxe, like pick it, like the whole, I don't know, area of it. And then once it was rubble, I could shovel out the rubble about like an inch, you know,
Right.
and then I'd pick it again and I'd shovel it out, pick it again, shovel it out. And that gets harder the deeper you get because you have less room to swing and get your momentum. So I remember my hole being hard. I think that one I'm talking about took like at least 13 hours. Maybe it was 11 hours. I'll take a picture of it.
Wow.
But yeah, you're like, you know, halfway through a hole, your hours like in, and you're just like, do I really need this? Like, you're like, you know, like maybe I should just leave. Maybe I should just go back out in the world and try things my own way. You know, I got a lot of good experience here and wisdom, and I don't want to go back out and screw up. So maybe I could do it on my own. But I would take my holes as opportunities a lot to like talk to God because I'd be like, okay, God, like, one, was I in the wrong? Like, was I talking? Like, I don't think my intentions were wrong. I was just talking to a lady just to talk to the lady. I was just responding.
Mhm.
But like, was I talking? I'd like try to like, am I guilty of anything? And then after like that, it just leads to like, hey, you know, like, at least I'm not on drugs anymore. You know, like at least I'm not like, I could be back in California, but what would I be doing if I was back in California? Like, is this situation ideal? Not really, but like some of these guys are great guys, and a lot of them really do care about me. And whether I like to admit it or not, I care about some of them. And when I'm just in a hole talking to God, which I had like I think 3 holes.
And they were all hard.
I was there for a year and a half though. Some dudes be getting holes like on the weekly basis. Like they're like, just go dig. Like literally, you get home, they just be like, you know, put on your digging clothes. Like you already know you got to go dig your hole. But it's just like I only racked up 3 in like I don't know, like 18 months. So it was a long time.
But they were all hard.
They were all super hard because they were all for talking to girls. But well, and this part I do not understand. This part I do not understand is the guys digging the hole. Once you're done with your hole, you literally just fill it back up, which is like bittersweet. But the guys would be so bitter from digging their holes that they would put stuff in the holes like rocks or like tree stumps that are super hard to dig out the hole. And sometimes they put them really deep when it's the hardest to get it out. Like I said, because you don't got much momentum. You're like trying to dig, like it's just tough. And I explained to the guys multiple times, like, guys, you're just screwing over the next guy that has to come out here and do this. You're not like getting back at the guy who gave you the hole. So like, what's up with this? Like, why do we do? I never did that, but I was just like, why do we do this? And they were just like, you know, we're just a bunch of guys. So there's like, it's just part of the code, part of the process. And I was like, y'all are stupid. Like, whatever. That's so messed up to do to like the next brother that's already in a pinch because he's digging a hole. So never understood that part. But I'd even tell guys in the ministry like that we're just like, you know, the program ideally just pushes you to like face all your problems with God by just putting him first in your life, bringing everything to him from the first thing in the morning. You start every single morning by waking up and reading Proverbs at 5 a.m. We have set Bible reading times throughout the day. So it's just like, it was structured so that whether you wanted to or not, you were taking something to God and just hoping to get something back.
And did you end up reading the Bible?
I did.
Over there?
Yeah. By the time I was done with U-Turn, I believe I had read the whole thing, which I'd never done before. I don't think I'd ever read the Bible at all.
And that was an interesting experience because did it give you a lot of ideas? And so what you're talking about is this tool of living with God and living. Can you explain how you use that? So if someone else was interested in using this possibly as a way to balance and find a way to live their best life.
Okay.
What would you suggest for them?
I would suggest going to the source directly because I feel like when I talk to a lot of people about God, they will have a list of complaints, which in my opinion is perfectly normal. But a big portion of that list is complaints about other people. Like, I feel like it's not so much like, well, why is there so much suffering? Why is there so much like cancer in the world? Why is it this? Like, why is it that? Like, we all have those questions, and there's a time and a place for the answer to those questions as well. But a lot of times it's God ignored me, like in my pain. God like left me here. I've tried talking to God and he doesn't answer. And I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we come back to some experience where some person hurt them in the name of God.
Oh.
whether that was like in church, outside of church, a family member or something. But it usually does come down to one scenario specifically where they're just like, that person did them really dirty and like kind of signed God's name on it. And they're literally like, I'm saying all this stuff to you because God, or because God loves you, or because this is what God wants and you're not doing that. So it's like, if that's how you're going to live, then he doesn't accept you and he hates you and you're going to hell.
Wow.
Yeah. So that, I feel like, would set anybody up for failure. But again, as awkward as it sounds, I really don't feel like I ever had an experience like that. I disliked God due to the drug use, honestly, and it kind of like I said, expanding my mind and me just thinking like, man, why does God allow like some of the things he does? Like, why did he even create us in the first place? Like, I just had so many questions for God that I couldn't get answers for, that God also wasn't giving me answers for. So I just started to hate him all on my own. That was around like 15 or 16. By the time I get to rehab and I'm like 18, so I used to talk to God, and kind of rant to him and complain at him and just let him know how I felt. And I remember one time
was it cathartic to do that?
Yeah, no, 100%. When I was like 15, I was outside of my house and I'm just like spewing angry because I think I just got done at youth group and I was asking questions. They didn't have any answers. And I was just like so like pissed off, to be perfectly honest. And I was just like talking to God and I was just like, you know what, man, like I'm just so sick of like your dumb ways and your dumb rules and your dumb kids all over the planet with their fake everything. And I was like, and anytime I ask a question, I was like, they never have an answer. And all they say is read your Bible. They say, if you just read your Bible, like the answers to your questions are in the Bible. But they weren't saying it like with confidence, like, oh, like, like, hey, like read your Bible. Like that's so many answers for you. It was more so like you should just read your Bible. Like all the answers are in
like
the Bible.
An excuse.
It felt a lot more like excuse, like scapegoat, like, and not even like a, hey, like, I don't know the answer to that question, but give me some time and maybe I'll come back to you, which is, I've chosen to do that with a lot of my youth kids and just be very upfront with them from the beginning, just because I would have rather have heard that. I feel like that would have gave me just something rather than just like they didn't even tell me where to read the Bible. They said, read the Bible.
Well, it kind of makes you almost feel stupid too. It's like, well, I'm not sure where to go.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going to answer. I mean, I can read the whole Bible and try to figure it out.
Well, like literally, I was like, well, haven't you read the Bible? Can't you just tell me what it says or tell me the answer that I would find in there for me? Like, that's what I didn't get. Like, I was like, and you guys have been doing this most of your lives. Like, just tell me what's up. Why do I have to go find it myself? Like, can't you just tell? Obviously, I can't find it myself. I've been looking. Granted, I never looked in the Bible. So when I was complaining to God, I was just like, hey, so it's like your kids always use this like total punk outline of just go read your Bible. So I was like, so give me a time and a place where I have nothing to do but read your stupid book. But by this point, I already knew that God had a weird sense of humor. So I specified that isn't prison, because that's on the top of my goal list. Don't go to prison. So I was like, give me a time and a place where I have nothing to do but read your book that isn't prison. So that whenever somebody says that to me again, I can just be like, I've read the Bible. Now what? Like, now there's truly nothing you can say to me. There's no refute, that you have no backup, like you lost. Because like back then I wanted to find answers, but I also wanted them to see that they were just as lost as I was, in my opinion.
Most of us are.
I mean, it's a bummer, but like, we don't got to be lost alone.
No, but that's why we're talking today,
Exactly.
Because what you're talking about is a lot of the things that I've heard a lot of people wrestle with religion, where it's just like such disappointment and it's so confusing, but you found such peace and direction and purpose with yours.
It was in U-turn where I was laying on my bed. It kind of took them full circle. I know I've kind of rabbit trailed a few times, but I was laying on my bed just thinking like, dang, I'm in Payson, Arizona. Like, what a bust. And I remembered that conversation that I had with God like 3 years prior, which was, with how my memory serves me, the odds of that happening are super low. But I was just like, whoa. I like shot up, like literally like shot up in my bed, and I was like, son of a gun, like this is it.
I got what I asked for.
Like, this is the time, this is the place. It's not prison, it's close, but it's not. And I was like, I mean, like half these guys are here court ordered, it's jail or here. And I was like, and they're here, so it feels pretty authentic. But I was like, but it's not. And I was like, and there's the sense of humor. And I was like, so he held up his end of the deal like 100%. And I was like, dang, I cannot be a punk. Like, I have to hold up my end of the deal. So I got a Bible, King James version, the easiest version to read. And I was just like, that's all they had there. And I was like, I guess I'll just, start reading the Bible. So I asked God, like, I was like, hey, like, is there like a good place to start? You know, like I hear there's some pretty cool spots with like whales and dragons and stuff. And he was just like, just start in the very beginning. So I was like, okay, like whatever. And so I started reading from the very beginning. Every night at 9, we have to read our Bibles for 30 minutes. It's called Word Fast. You're not allowed to speak, otherwise you get in trouble. And then at 9:30, it's lights out. At 9, Word Fast starts, and it doesn't end till 5 a.m. So from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., you're not allowed to speak. Otherwise you get in trouble. Wow. And yeah. And so I'd read my Bible for 30 minutes and kind of get that like warm up. And then in the front room, they would turn on the lamp, just a lamp. All the other lights are off, and you're allowed to go out there and read or like write letters to your family or do whatever you wanted. But you just couldn't speak and you had to be like chill. So I just went out there and I was just like, okay, then I'm going to give this a mile. And I just started reading and reading and reading and reading and reading, and found all sorts of stuff that I didn't, approve of or vibe with, especially if you start in Genesis like I did. Like you see some characters that are just downright like crazy. You see God do some questionable things to anybody, like when he takes out whole civilizations of people, and you're just like, that seemed a little harsh. And there's times, where characters come out and they're just kind of connivey little sneaky people, like kind of thievy heel catcher type people, and God blesses them up to the heavens, and you're just like, what? This guy's a snake. Like, why is this guy even rock with you? Like, even when he meets you, he fights you, like quite literally. And I'm just like, so I was just like, okay, well, I don't agree with this, and I don't agree with that. And here's a question for the guys at the church, and here's a question for the other guys at the church. And so I just started keeping a list of all the things that I disagreed with. And the more I kept reading, the more I kept watching him bail his people out of situations that they 100% got themselves in. And it got me thinking a lot about all the situations I'd gotten myself in over my life. And a lot of times, some of them are scary. The things like that my friends and I got us in, like I talk about like getting away with things, where we could have gotten in trouble. And sometimes we got away with things where we just would have gotten hurt. We were just in the wrong place, wrong time, wrong people, way older than us. We always look kind of older than our ages anyway. When we were 14, we probably looked like 16 or 18, which is still not ages kids should be doing much at. But yeah, just reflecting on some things, I'm just like, how did we get home that night? None of us even drive. I'm just like, like literally, we just woke up and we're all at Jules' house. Like, how did that happen? And just going back and none of us having explanations for some of the things. And then thinking back to like even earlier times with my parents and being in strangers' houses and not knowing who these people were, like at all, not knowing where my parents were, but just being safe, like feeling safe, not having any memories of anything bad happening to me. And that just kind of stuck out to me. So I just like kept on reading, kept watching God bail his people out, kept having questions, kept seeing things that I disagreed with. So it wasn't like I just, jumped head first. But I think it was around 2nd Chronicles, like in the Bible, or somewhere around Kings, where I don't know, I was just like, okay, you know what? Like, I don't know why you do everything that you do. You definitely do things differently than I would do. I'd like to believe if I was God, I would do a better job, or that I would at least do a different job. Like I really would. But I'm like, but after reading all the stupid stuff that we do, that you bail us out of, I would have killed us all a long time ago. Like literally, we would have got 3 chapters in, 100%. Yeah, we would have got like 3 chapters in, or maybe like right in the garden. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously this isn't working out. So, we'll start again with just like some sheep, and we're just like, yeah, we won't make them in our image. But he just kept bailing us out. So it was the hard pill to swallow. But I was like, okay, you know what? You are more gracious than I am. You are more loving than I am. You're more kind than I am. You are more cruel than I am. You're more strict than I am also. And I was like, but at the same time, I think that makes your other qualities shine all the harder. Because again, like if I had to do your job, I'd be doing it differently, and I'd maybe be doing it harsher than you are. So I'm like, I think I'm willing to give this a go. Like I was like, I still have a lot of questions about why you do the things you do, and why you choose certain timelines and certain time frames for these things. But at this point, I think my bigger questions are, how do you put up with us? How are you this patient? Why do you put up with us? What's the end game? Why do you heal? Why don't you let us all suffer? Why do you bail so many people out? Why do you heal others? Why do you reconcile these things? Why do you restore certain minds? Why am I still the way I am? Why other people are like, not able to hold down a job anymore, but we did the same drugs. Why? I need to know. And I was like, so I think I'm only going to get to know by getting closer to you. And I was like, but I got to be real with you, man. Like, I have a lot of hatred in my heart for all of humanity. I think we're better off being dead, if I'm totally honest. Like, I get that there's some good in the world, but I also believe there's a ton of real evil in the world. And if we could just end it all, like right now, like that would be the greatest mercy killing of all time. But you don't do that. And maybe that's more mercy than I'm capable of comprehending. So I was like, I want to give it a go. And I was like, but I don't think I can do it the way I am. I don't think I can do it the way I think, the way I feel. I feel like my heart is just filled with black blood. Mm-hmm. And it's just hate and envy and anger and unwilling to accept like people for like who they are. Mm-hmm. So I was like, so if I'm understanding this right, like half of this is give you everything that I am and love you with all that I am. And with that, you turn right around and say, I will take care of you 100%. Now you go out and love everybody else beyond your ability. And I was like, that second part sounds horrible, but like, I
will give it a try.
No, I was like, can't we just do like a you and me thing? Like, and he was like, no, I'm sorry. A lot of people think it works that way, but it doesn't. He's like, it's a two-way street. Oh. You love me, I love you. And with that, you get to love others and you have the power to love others. You have the option to love others, which I'm not sure if you've been aware of until now, but I'm giving you the option to love other people. And if you're willing to explore that option, I'll give you the strength to love other people and the compassion to love other people, the peace to love other people, the understanding. And
that's changed everything?
That's changed everything.
And so what do you do every day? How do you keep, because it's a meditation almost, you have to remind yourself, those thoughts you said, those dark thoughts, they're just right there. I know they're with me sometimes. How do you keep them balanced?
I do try to keep a lot of the practices that the ministry taught me, which was just as early as possible to talk to God, communicate with him, get structured, which is basically consist of giving thanks to him and reminding myself where I was before here. Because every day I think it gets easy to wake up and think, what do I want to get done? What do I want to chase? What's going to stand in my way? What can I like just step on to reach my goals? I think is where my brain automatically goes. And I'm just like, if I have to step on anything, especially like a person to reach my goals, then it's something's wrong. Like, I don't think I'm doing it right because I'm here for people. There are things that I want to accomplish, but people can't be what I sacrifice to get what I want. Even if that means I have to take a much longer route or a much less traveled by, it might even be lonelier in some areas, but it will definitely pay off and 100% be worth it because he just reminds me of why I'm doing things and that I'm here to help other people, that I'm here to inspire other people, that I'm here to let people know that they're not alone and there's a better way of living than the current one that they may just be suffering along through.
Well, thank you, Adrian. Your faith and religion sound like it is a very powerful tool if people want to explore it, because just your journey from, your diagnosis and then how people labeled you and then to come back and all what you just said was really powerful. Thank you so much. And I know you go out and teach other kids as youth. You have the church, you have some youth groups you do. Mm-hmm. And then you're just rocking the Ending the Silence youth thing. You just did it this morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Here with us right now doing a podcast.
Love this. Yeah.
And you're going to be doing some more. And so you're a blessing to this world. Thank you.
Thanks
so glad
so
that
much.
God touched you. Adrian had a rough time. He had a splintered family, ADHD, and he struggled in school. He tried to self-regulate with drugs, but that's not really the point of this story. The real point is that he not only survived, he thrived. And how did he do that? He kept trying. He found help. And he devised strategies to deal with his challenges. And that included a rehab group modeled on Alcoholics Anonymous. AA remains one of the most successful alcohol recovery programs on the planet. So what's the secret? The belief in a higher power. and reliance on peer counseling, people who can offer both emotional support and practical coping strategies based on life experience. So we thought we'd take a look at the impact of spirituality on mental health. It's quite the thing these days. There's lots of research, and it turns out science and spirit aren't enemies. A wealth of studies focused on the mental health benefits of awe. That includes the awe that comes from prayer and spirituality, and the awe that comes from nature. Awe reduces depression, anxiety, and a host of other problems. It makes you feel small, which makes your problems feel smaller. It leaves you hopeful, optimistic, and gives you a sense of purpose. And all these things contribute to happiness, resilience, and mental health. So here are some of the studies we found. You can find links to these studies and more on our website, strengthbeyondstruggle.org. The National Institutes of Mental Health looked at studies of awe and mental health. That includes the awe people report in prayer, as well as in nature. The researchers found that triggering awe has lots of effects. These include spiritual and religious engagement, lowers the likelihood of depression, and increases lifespan. Awe reduces activation of the sympathetic nervous system. It releases oxytocin and lowers inflammation in the brain. It reduces activity in the brain involved in self-reflection. And this is interesting. It reduces the sense of self. As it turns out, being lost in thoughts about yourself isn't healthy. It is associated with depression, anxiety, body image problems, self-harm, drug abuse, eating disorders, racism, bullying, and aggression. Oh, wow. Another study looked at the link between awe, spirit, and mental health. The study did a detailed analysis of 82 people to find out how often they feel awe and what triggered these feelings. They found that people who feel awe, mostly from prayer and spiritual practices, feel much more positive. They're less vulnerable to depression and anxiety. They feel more hopeful and optimistic. But this is a surprise. The young people are less likely to pray or meditate or feel a sense of awe. The older people in the study, they were more likely to do these things. And generally, the older people also reported a greater sense of well-being. One final fascinating study tried to determine if Alcoholics Anonymous really works, because a lot of doctors, trained counselors, and psychiatrists are skeptical about AA. For starters, the 12 steps is based on the belief in a higher power. The final step is acknowledging you can't control your drinking without the help of that higher power. And second, AA relies on the peer support of fellow alcoholics instead of doctors and therapists. So researchers from Harvard and Stanford reviewed 35 high-quality studies to see if AA works. And here's what they found. On average, AA had 60% better results than conventional medical therapy. None of the 35 studies found AA worked less well than medical interventions. The researchers credited both that belief in a higher power and the emotional and practical support of others in the group for the success. They also said AA works well when paired with professional counseling. We're struck by that study because Adrian talked about how the people in his group helped him get through. And we were also struck because that's what the National Alliance for Mental Illness does through its support groups. Those groups focus on helping people, parents, and families deal with mental health challenges, relying on the hard-won wisdom of lived experience and having the courage, finally, to break the silence. Thank you for joining us to hear Adrian's story. Maybe I'll see you in a NAMI group sometime where we will talk about the lived experience on our mental health journey.
It's okay to just be me. We're all made to be unique. It's okay to have my needs. It's okay to be me. What's easy for others are struggles for me. I do things differently. Doesn't make me broken. It just makes me me. People out there help me through, ones who care about me and you. Through my struggles I find my strength. Feels so good to be me. What's easy for others are struggles for me. I do things differently. Doesn't make me broken, it just makes me me. People helping me to get through have their own struggles too. Even though they have their strength, they are human like me. Through these struggles we build our strength. We all want to feel healthy. Even though we make mistakes, struggles build our strength.